So, hi everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Welcome to the Great Return Ship, turning holiday returns into repeat customers. I'm Simon Green, the head of growth at agnoStack, and I'm excited to moderate today's session. We're going to dig into one of the most misunderstood parts of the e-commerce experience, which is returns and refunds, and how they can actually become a driver for long-term loyalty, retention, and even revenue. Let's be honest, most brands still see returns as a post-purchase problem. That's a mouthful right there, but the best retailers are flipping that on its head. Today, we'll explore how CX teams empowered with the right tools and context can turn frustrating refund moments into relationship-building opportunities. With that, let me introduce today's panelists. So I want to start off by introducing James Dome. James is the COO at Rivo, where he's helped scale the leading Shopify loyalty platform for fast-growing brands. He brings a sharp operator's lens to customer retention and growth strategy. Next up, we have Corey LaPlante. Corey is the CEO of LaPlante Management, Zendesk's US service partner for 2024, and a top CX expert helping brands level up their support with smarter systems, AI, and more human-first automation. And finally, we have Adam Gross. Adam is the co-founder and CEO of agnoStack, where he's building powerful CX tools that connect e-commerce and support. He's a longtime innovator and speaker in the e-commerce, retail tech, and customer experience space. Okay, we've introduced speakers. Let me briefly touch on the agenda.
Simon, that sounded so natural. I can't believe that you memorized all that and weren't reading from a screen at all.
There you go. There you go. I spent all night last night sitting up and learning it. All right, we'll start by setting the stage with what's unique and often misunderstood around preparation for holidays. We'll talk about how to improve returns and refund experiences and how shopper expectations are evolving in 2025. Then we'll talk through practical strategies to reduce friction, empower agents, and create memorable post-purchase experiences. And then finally, we'll wrap up with some takeaways that you can start implementing right away. We're also going to be doing a Q&A throughout, so feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and we'll make sure that we get to those as well. Okay, with all that, I think you've heard enough from me for now, but as I mentioned, I'll be moderating this, so you'll hear from me very occasionally after this, but I want to kick off with our first question for today. Okay, so I'm going to start off with Corey here for this one. Corey, what does a great return or post-purchase experience look like in 2025, and what are great brands still missing on this?
Yeah, well, I will start out by saying for anyone who has had the misfortune of working with me regularly in the past, you've heard me kind of self-describe myself as a Zendesk nerd, and that's really kind of the one thing that I'm good at. And in having worked with Zendesk over the years, one of the things that stands out is how often a client of mine will freely admit they don't feel like they offer the level of customer service they wish they did, but they're not even sure how to move forward with that, what they ought to do. And I think it's important for us to recognize it's not that out in the world as a consumer, we have all these mustache twirling villains who are trying to ruin their customer's day. They just genuinely don't know what to do. And so I think over the course of the next hour, we can cover some of what it would look like for them to actually have a plan moving forward.
Perfect. I appreciate that. Why don't we kick it over to you, James?
Yeah, I think if you ask me what a great return experience looks like in 2025, I'd say it's about continuity of the relationship. It's about building like loyalty moments as part of like the customer experience, whether that's first time contacting support or like the 50th time. It shouldn't be the end of the transaction. So, I mean, the post-purchase interaction is usually happening at a tough moment for the customer. Something didn't fit, maybe something was damaged, maybe it wasn't what they expected. And I think that's where trust is either like reinforced or it's lost. So the best brands that I've seen focus on these three things. They focus on like the context. So they don't just see like, oh, this is customer number 520 with order number, 1234. They know the customer's a VIP. They know they've referred 3 friends. They know they've spent $5,000, and they know they're like one purchase away from unlocking like a tier or a perk. 2, I think they focus on like just the ease of like the ease for the customer. Like the return step should be simple. It should be a QR code in box. It's one-click return portal, or maybe just like a seamless live chat flow. And I think that working in more human into that is like the key. And then turning a negative into a positive, I think, is a very good thing. We've all had terrible returns experience and some that probably are really good. So maybe like, the agent on the other end adds loyalty points or upgrades your tier for the inconvenience, or offers like free shipping with a thank you note. Things like that, I think, really make the difference. And I think what's missing for a lot of brands is they treat returns as a cost center, not like a loyalty moment. And the truth is, I think your CX team is the superpower there. They're on the front lines. And if you give them the right context and tools, I think they can turn those low points into really high point interactions. So I think the real question is, like, once we've identified returns are loyalty moments, like, how do we shift that pure refund process into something that builds more relationships, like, without slowing anything down? That's my take.
Totally. Yeah, I think for me, much more like thinking about personal experiences that I've had of, where did I have a less than stellar buying experience that I wound up getting on with a customer support rep that turned me into a big fanatic. I remember when we were first starting agnoStack, sort of talking with customers in the space, and it's like everybody has something. It's like, tell me about, the worst returns experience you've ever had. And within split second, everybody's like, oh my God, I just bought this thing last week. It showed up. It was absolutely terrible. It was blah, blah, blah. So for me personally, probably the one that comes to mind is a holiday gift. Maybe it was like a year or two back. I saw a random, maybe Instagram ad or TikTok ad or something for this blanket. It was like, big woven, like these like big piece of fabric, kind of hand knit. I was like, this thing's perfect. My girlfriend uses a blanket every night. She's freezing cold in the house, constantly complaining. This thing looked magnificent. It was like flowing all over the place. I ordered it up. Like, I've never heard of this brand before. I've never bought from them before. Blanket shows up and it's like 2.5 feet wide and 3.5 feet long, like barely enough for my dog. And I'm reaching out to them. I reached out on their, support email address. I reached out on social media. I tried calling their telephone, and it was absolutely the worst return experience I've ever had in my life. And I literally thought, like, maybe I bought the wrong product. Maybe they had size plus human size somewhere in the mix. And just the idea of how that really shaped my perception of the brand, and the idea that consumers are more often willing to try a new brand than they've ever been in the history of the world. And at the same time, I think their stats of like 85% of millennials and Gen Z will try a new brand, but if they have one bad purchase experience, they'll never purchase from them again. And then I remembered, as Simon, I don't know if you're okay to share, but Simon and I were chatting right around when he came on board. He just was buying a new car and went through probably one of the craziest return nightmare experiences ever. If you're up to share, I think it's an awesome one.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I bought a car earlier on this year. It was a Toyota RAV4, and I bought it from an online retailer. You'll probably guess as I tell this story, they're not sponsoring us today, so they're not going to get a specific shout out. But if you want to know more about them afterwards, reach out. I'll tell you about this, and you'll understand why I'm happy to chat about this return experience.
And I know we're not mentioning them by name, but they don't by chance have very large vending machines that you actually buy your car from, do they?
They certainly do. Yeah, they certainly do. So anyway, we bought a Toyota RAV4 earlier on this year. Come to find out that we had been given the wrong car. So we bought an all-wheel drive. We paid for an all-wheel drive. So you pay a little bit more for an all-wheel drive. We took the thing home and parked it on the city streets. We live in Philadelphia, so we're rarely in the car. And about a week and a half later, jumped into the car, only to realize this car does not have all-wheel drive. So we reached out to them. Their return policy was already, their window was closed. They said 7 days, and we said to them, well, it's the wrong car. And so what they ended up doing was moving heaven and earth for us in order to ensure that we were able to get the car replaced, despite the fact that we're outside of the return window and we didn't notice it until too late. But what was great about it was that even on the days that they had no updates for us, they would reach out to us and say, "Hey, Simon, sorry, you were expecting an email from the solicitor, the lawyer today to with XYZ form. We don't have that ready for you. We'll hopefully have it for you tomorrow." So it was the continuous communication. It was the fact that anybody who we got passed to always knew what the background was. We didn't have to keep explaining ourselves. It was just an ideal experience. And despite the fact that they got the purchase part of it so wrong, they got the return part so right, and I definitely would use them again as a result.
Yeah, it was so crazy to me. I mean, the idea of like how much more wrong could you get? You got the wrong car.
Yeah.
Like to come away from that and you're like, no, they were amazing. I would buy from them again tomorrow. And just really thinking about that as a frame for, the conversation today around, amazing post-purchase experiences can really, change the dynamics of what was a bad purchase into, some lifelong opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a good segue into the next part here. I suppose we can start with you on this one, James. How do we move from a refund process to a relationship building moment without slowing down the whole process?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think the key to transforming those like refund customer service transactional moments into something more relationship based is like visibility. Like take, for example, the car you purchased. Obviously, someone on that side of things had visibility into, every transaction data point across the customer journey. They knew how much you spent, what car you bought, what car you're supposed to get. They also knew there was processes behind the scenes. So no one was operating blind there. Although it seemed like magic behind the scenes, I think when they obviously have great internal systems. When you surface the right data, I think everything changes. Everything changes when you have all the right data. So like imagine the agent on the other end who can instantly see, how much you've spent over time, who you are, where you work, the loyalty status of you, recent behaviors, anything like that. Have you engaged with any marketing campaigns? Are you replying to emails? Your purchase patterns. So I think that data, sets the tone of the entire interaction. If someone sees a customer's made 10 purchases this year, the conversation is entirely different than someone who's just bought something. They might have sent 100 emails so far. They might know the founder. There's a lot of context there that I think is surfaced when we have the right data and the right platforms. The reality is, I think most support systems show the bare minimum, or they rely very heavily on using AI to replace a lot of these experiences. And I think that there's a case to be made for that. And I think sprinkling in the right way is really, really good. But I think bringing more loyalty data and behavioral context directly into the work stream is the key. You want a 360-degree view of the customer. So, I mean, if they're a VIP, we should highlight that front and center. If they're one purchase away from unlocking a reward, let's show that in the conversation. When all that data is surfaced in real time, like no one has to go hunting for it. The customer doesn't have to explain how they feel. The experience feels like magic and it feels good. And, it's experiences you talk about later. I know there's 100 stories about the returns experience at Nordstrom back in the day float around, and how I've had my own great experiences like with returning things at Nordstrom. They never used to require a receipt. They never used to require anything. It's like if you were a Nordstrom customer, they trusted you. It was all based on trust, and I think that those are really good experiences. And I think that it all hinges on like one thing. It's giving people the tools to make those calls confidently, even if they're not experts in loyalty or e-commerce or anything like that. Not just leaving people just completely blank and out in the wind. So that's my take.
No, I appreciate that. What about you, Adam?
I think from my end, just the idea of thinking about returns and refunds as not the destination, but as part of creating great post-purchase experiences. And those can be in good times and in bad. I think, one of them that came to mind for me, I was chatting with some of the team in prep for this, and somebody was like, have you ever seen what Chewy does? Again, I don't know if anybody from Chewy's on or otherwise, but not planning. Have you ever seen what Chewy does around their subscriptions when you're dealing with less than stellar moments? And I was like, fortunately or unfortunately, no. And if you go and Google for that, you will see a tremendous number of results. And specifically in Reddit, you'll see people raving about what that's like from some of their toughest times. So if you have, let's say, a dog food subscription, or maybe, dog toys or whatever it may be, like dealing with canceled subscriptions, I know is part and parcel to something everybody on the call here deals with. But we have an inevitable moment. I mean, animals pass away. And as part of that, nearly every subscription cycle in their overall ecosystem winds up having a moment of, hey, I just received my product and unfortunately my pet passed away. And how they handle that experience is incredible. They literally send back this email, which I'm sure is, part of an automated flow or, something to that effect. And I'm psyched to see Corey show a bit more about how do we bring in some of the advanced AI capabilities in here, but it's probably automated, but it literally, starts with like, hello, so-and-so, I'm sorry to hear that your animal passed away. If by chance the, dry dog food 8-ounce that you just purchased is still okay, please go ahead and donate it to a local shelter or somebody in need. We're, incredibly sorry to hear about your experience. Animals are part of our family here. And every single post that, has a copy of one of these emails out there is raving about how amazing their experience was with the brand. So, really good stuff. I see somebody else put something in the chat around Bombas. Some amazing post-purchase experiences there. But Corey, what about from your end?
Yeah, I mean, Adam, you're saying it the same way I would say it. Like that was an automation, but a human made that automation. And that's the thing. Support side is still a human thing. We use automation, we use AI. I'll share my screen in a minute and do a little demo of the AI in Zendesk. But we use those things to make our humans better, not to replace our humans. And we don't want to lose sight that that's what we have. We have human beings interacting with other human beings. And so we have the option to tell our people and the tools they're using, just transact and finish it. And Simon, in your example, it's not that your vending machine car couldn't have just had the transaction. Well, sorry, you're outside the window, tough luck. And what are you going to do? Like, well, okay, I guess that's the rules.
Yeah.
But they were like, someone was a human being and treated you like a human being. And so what I would say on that relationship building piece is just give your humans the space and the resources to engage at that level. We should all prefer to live life that way, because at some point we're going to be on the other side of it, and we're describing those experiences, and oh man, it's terrible when I get a tiny blanket and nobody cares, but how great it is when I get the experience I want, even when it came from what could have been a negative experience and was for some amount of time, and then it shifted. So yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, we were talking a little bit about just in general of like, how do we deliver smarter support, even if you're not a, customer experience expert or an e-commerce expert. And I always use a good example. I may actually share my screen now and go through this, but there's an example. If you've been on a customer demo with me and you've seen this before, I apologize. It's definitely not the first time this example, but one of the things that we see quite often is, I'm on a chat or a phone or something with a brand, and I'm going through, and everybody thinks that we need to sort of automate our way out of a bunch of this stuff. So what can I do around self-service, ticket deflection, automated resolutions direct within a chat? And what I've seen on the other side of that as a customer is I'll open up a chat or I'll start a phone call. And I had a scenario where I placed an order in the morning. Maybe there were some delays on the shipping of that. I've now opened up a chat and I'm just trying to get my shipping refunded. And what you wind up with in there as an end consumer is very often I'm in the chat. It's like, how can I help you? I had an issue with my order. Great. Here's a couple of knowledge base articles that may help answer your question. That's not quite what I'm looking for. Did this answer your question? And you're going back and forth. And by the time that you finally got through to an agent, whether it was phone chat or whatever it may be, you're starting that, you're telling that story over again, and compare that to the scenario that happens in here. So let's say that a phone rang. I answered my, phone inside of Zendesk. You can see directly in here your entire customer interaction. So this was an order that was, placed in the morning. There was an update. We notified the customer. We captured payment. We sent them an update. Fulfillment went out. And then somewhere during the day, there was a delay, carrier delay, packages waiting. So I received this ticket at this moment. The customer hasn't said a word yet. All they did was place the phone call. I'm an agent. I have access to all this. I can see in here that they're shipping information in there. Maybe it's not going to show up till tomorrow. And then I see there's a ticket created. I know 99% of the time, that's a customer who's angry that their product is delayed. So before they've even said a word, I could come in here, maybe go ahead and refund their shipping back to the original form of payment. I can go into my, Rivo setup. I can see that, they've got some loyalty points. I'm going to go ahead and issue them, 500 incremental loyalty points for their issue. And just the idea of taking something that historically a lot of brands felt the need to have to automate, to use an AI based solution or to handle some of that in chat. The reality is it's not as good of a customer experience. And if you can empower your agents with tools that are as efficient or more efficient even than the automation side of things, you can sometimes wind up with this really incredible sweet spot somewhere in between.
Absolutely. So just as we're kind of talking about this a little bit more, talking about the returns as a life cycle opportunity, I'd love to hear from you, Corey, a little bit about how no-code flows within Zendesk might be able to help deliver smarter support, even if the Zendesk customer or the CX people are not necessarily experts at this whole process.
Yeah, I'll share my screen here in a second. And the way Zendesk does it, their AI is called Copilot. They have a portion of that called Auto Assist. And the idea there is it will suggest to your agents, here is a thing that you could do or say. And actually, just like this week, they rolled out some new functionality on giving instructions specifically to the agent instead of just suggesting here is what you ought to say. But it could start out with something as simple as, hey, I think based on what this person has said, we ought to just check the status of that order. And so this will actually make an API call. And then based on what it says in that API call, it will send us branching one direction or the other. So it might be the case that we've got some kind of warranty eligibility or that we've got shipping or whatever the deal is. And so now it's saying, hey, here is what the order is. Here's when it's going to schedule. Is that the thing I want to send? And if I wanted to change some part of it, I actually don't want to solve this just yet. I can do that. I could change the wording. But in this case, I'll actually just send that message and approve it. And out that goes to my customer, Corey Tester, who I happen to know fairly well. And so we can see that process kind of play itself out. If he turns around and were to ask a question around like, what happens if some part of my snowboard is broken, then the system can continue the conversation. So it's not just a one stop and then we're done type of scenario.
Yeah.
So if I can type fast enough here and get that to send on the ticket, we'll see that pop up right here. And then we'll see Auto Assist once again try to take its best shot at this thing. And it might be that that's just based on a Help Center article that we have. It might be based on some previous ticket. It might be that we've actually given it a specific procedure that says, in this circumstance, do this thing. If it's this, then do that. And so you can get fairly granular with what we would want it to suggest. And you can see here, it's just saying, yep, 90-day warranty. Here are a couple options for us. Let us know what you want to do. funny enough, it still really wants me to solve this ticket, but I don't think we're done with that person, so I would still not do that just yet. But that's the idea. This is an approach. You see here, I still got agnoStack here, and I think it certainly levels up some of what we're doing. But if it were the case that I, as an agent, didn't know a single thing about how our process worked, I could still have AI help me out there. Also, maybe don't just send me out into the wild if I don't know what I'm doing, but
Yeah.
at least we would be able to take some of those steps as we go. So that's just one example of how Zendesk would handle it in a return type scenario. Hey, let's walk our agent through what they ought to do.
Yeah, and I think even the combined setup, like we've been doing quite a bit of work on the agnoStack side for the last number of months on how do we use agnoStack in combination with advanced AI agents, advanced and Copilot, and the idea of being able to invoke the agnoStack API as part of those procedures or automated resolutions is super powerful. Where it's like, okay, that's amazing. We identified, intent detection. This looks like somebody requesting a return. We used entity detection to actually find the order number. We fed that into agnoStack. We have real time data available, and then now we can take really powerful actions like making a partial refund back as store credit, or issue loyalty credits, or move somebody to a new membership tier, or extend their membership timeline by an extra month. All of those in the mix there, that oftentimes are that incredible blend between human assisted support experiences and automated ones, is where I think there's some real magic to happen.
Yeah.
And actually, that kind of leads me into my next question, and I'm going to jump back on you for this one, Corey. Kind of flipping what we were just talking about on its head. Where do you see brands relying too heavily on bots and automation, and what's a better way to solve the support volume problem?
And the thing I see being the greatest area of concern for people when we talk about building a bot is the experience that we all have had in what I would describe as bot purgatory. The idea where, hey, the bot starts out, it asks me some reasonable question, and then it's the third and the fourth and the fifth question, and I'm like, hey, human, talk to an agent, anything to get me out of this that I'm trapped in. And I don't want to pick on anybody, but I feel like internet service providers are the greatest at this one of good luck getting to a real person. You're just talking to that bot for the rest of your life. And so getting trapped is the worst feeling ever. When we're building bots for our clients, the thing that we always tell them is, hey, you just have to make sure you have that off ramp. There's got to be a place where even in the bot flow, you're saying, hey, if you would like to talk to someone, here's what it can be. And it doesn't have to be that you talk to a live agent. That can just be, here is how you can submit a ticket. So if you're out there going, yeah, that's great, but I'm never going to be able to have the staffing to do this live. Yeah, me either. And that's fine. It doesn't need to be that. I would just say it's not a bad thing for that bot to try to help people self-serve, but let them out when they want out. We've all been on that other side. So design your bot such that it is helping people, but not to their own detriment. Let it help people right up to the place where they go, please, can I be free? And then yes, and off you go.
There's a couple of examples I'd be happy to share offline with some people that where I've been in that exact nightmare, and then you would just end up making phone calls to these people and sitting on hold for an hour and then getting annoyed with them there instead. So yeah, no, I 100%, I'm all in on that. I want to switch gears here a little bit and kind of talk about the loyalty as a full journey strategy. About how it has to live across the entire customer life cycle. So I'm gonna jump to you, James, for this question. But if you could, or for this this topic of conversation, but maybe you could give me an example of a brand who's embedded loyalty not just into the post-purchase journey, but into the purchase and marketing experience as well.
Yeah, it's a great question, and one that comes to mind, of course, is one of agnoStack's mutual customers, Zendesk and Rivo. I think Rise Superfoods. It's an awesome example of this. They run their referrals program through Rivo, and I think it's smart, but it's very powerful. And referrals are one thing that when you do them right, it can lower your CAC and also just not distract at all from the acquisition experience. And it's strictly a post-purchase marketing experience that you can embed across the customer journey. So for their referral program, it's extremely simple. Customer gets a personalized link they can share with friends. The friends get 15% off their first purchase. And then the advocate, the person who referred the friend, gets $10 off their next subscription order every time that someone who uses their link makes a purchase. The key here is that the actual reward is automatically applied towards your existing subscription. So on the surface, it's like a give and get type of program, but I think what makes it special is how they integrate it across their customer experience. It's woven into support conversations. It's in their post-purchase flows. It's part of their subscription model. It's a core part of their returning business, and you're really getting your customers to be brand advocates. And I think the messaging behind that is super key. When loyalty feels natural, you're not joining a program. It's you're automatically joined. Like you're on the referral program no matter what. And if you want to refer friends, you can and get rewarded for it. And you really don't have to do anything. It feels frictionless. So
that's the secret sauce, huh? Every single person that I know who's ever bought from Rise is the biggest fan I've ever met.
Totally. Yeah.
It's crazy. I've never seen anything like it. And, I know, how much time they spend on, not just the purchase cycle, but, the post-purchase experience cycle, and thinking about, loyalty and membership as part of their overall growth strategy. But it's incredible. Literally, when we were first beginning work with them, and the team, sort of heard that they were coming on board that same week, we had a friend visiting from out of town, and I was like, oh yeah, we're doing some work with this company called Rise. And they're like, oh my God, Rise? I love Rise. And literally the entire weekend were, convincing us of why it's the greatest thing in there. And I don't think it's just the loyalty program. They do amazing stuff. They have amazing product, but that's a really good example, not just being a joint customer, but of somebody who's doing some interesting stuff in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
We talk a lot about loyalty for buyers. How do we extend that to recipients or gift givers in a return scenario?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think gift returns are a big missed opportunity for a lot of brands. If someone receives your product as a gift, has to return or exchange it, I think that's often the first interaction they have with the brand. So with Rivo, we've seen brands offer a lot of different pieces to connect, like, say they're selling a door or a few doors across the world. We connect like that, the in-store experience with the online experience through different omni-channel flows. Very simple. There's, QR codes on packing slips, or, welcome emails as part of like the exchange process. But it flips the script from like, this is inconvenient, to the brand actually wants me to be a customer. So, I mean, one brand we've seen that be really successful with is Bureau. That's one of our brands at Rivo. And they've integrated a lot of different tech that Rivo has into their actual packaging. So when you scan a QR code, and I can actually pull up an example that might be better. So when you scan a QR code on the back of their box here, you can actually earn credit for purchasing. So this is awesome. And then when you sign up, you can view your credits automatically on this QR code claim screen and get awarded credit automatically. So it kind of bridges that like omni-channel gap there between retail and on-site, whether that's from a return experience or just, getting that customer back to purchase on-site.
Yeah, I remember the first time you showed me that, we were kind of talking about it, and it's like QR codes have been around for, the better part of the last decade and a half, and how many times we've heard this is like the year of the QR code. But
yeah.
The first time I saw it, those like light bulb was going off for me. I mean, I've been espousing for the last many years on and one of the reasons why, we actually had this webinar, this idea of like, it is a unbelievably unique time of year for a retailer, specifically in there. So it's probably your only time throughout the year where for every single purchase that's made, or for most purchases that are made, you actually have two potential future customers. You've got the buyer and you've got the giftee, and the idea of what could you do to turn both of them into, a long-term advocate of your brand. So it's like, I received a gift. What can I do in there to actually get them registered for something? And, QR codes inside the packaging, whether that's, going there for the purpose of earning, some free credit. Wow, amazing. Now I have that, lead captured in my system for future marketing. The purchasee itself, what can I do in there that I send them something, so that way they purchase additional things, or maybe, hey, why don't you buy something for yourself in there? Or, even going so far, I haven't seen a retailer do this yet, but I'm dying to. The platform itself knows, I bought a gift for Simon returned that gift. What could I actually do as a retailer in that scenario for the purchasee? Hey, nobody ever actually lets the person who bought it know, but maybe we want to try something more transparent. Hey, Adam, it looks like Simon returned, that gift in there. Here's $20 in credit to go, buy something else. Clearly you saw something in that brand that you liked. Maybe I want to go and purchase that for, somebody else in my life. And I think the idea of getting the 2-for-1 special is the thing that I think is a huge missed opportunity that, I haven't seen a single brand do really well yet in the space. If anybody is doing something around here, please put it in the chat, let us know, follow up. But I think there's gold in them hills.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. I think that it's a huge missed opportunity for retailers to try and get two people to come back to them and develop two long-term relationships. We're getting closer to the end here, so make sure that if you have any questions, to drop them into the Q&A section there. We'll get to them at the end. But I just have a couple more questions here that I want to quickly go through. So I'm going to jump to you, Corey, here. What are some ways agents can go beyond just the problem-solving piece to actually drive retention or upsells during any return?
Yeah, I'm gonna dodge your question some, but I'm actually just gonna speak more broadly to the approach to customer service here, and kind of, if I were to describe the top few tools of the trade. One, you need to identify the reason for contact, whether that's with an intent model and an AI type of thing, or a web form and customers are choosing an option, or we actually have a human read it and understand it. The faster we know someone is reaching out about a return, the faster we can get that ticket to the right person, provide that customer the right response. We ought to be automating most, if not all, of that workflow. And then that also has implications from the reporting side of things, because there's probably a lot of people who ought to want to know, did we have 5 returns in a month, or 50 or 500, and slice all that by product and SKU and whatever it may be. So we should have the data, and then we should use the data. And then once we've moved past that point, it's about the response itself. There's old and new approaches here, at least within Zendesk. For years, we've been able to use what are called macros to provide kind of that canned text to the most common questions, like a return. The trouble was you needed a veteran agent who actually knew where to go, what macro to choose. Today, the AI Copilot brings that next level, put that answer front and center like we were seeing there. Hey, here's what you ought to say, 90-day return or whatever. Even if it's your first day on the job, that prompt from the auto assist should give you the answer, and you can act like you actually know what you're doing, even if you don't. And then last, if we're interested in retention or upsell during a return, and if we're working with a product we don't really believe in, there's a whole lot of other problems that this webinar is not going to fix for you. There's a golden rule component to this. I've talked about all the systematic things you do in Zendesk and AI this and trigger macro automation that. At the end of the day, you know how you'd want to be treated. Go and do likewise, whether you're the agent interacting with the customer yourself, or someone who's overseeing that team of agents, or building out the systems like what we do. There's still an important human element. If I come back to my answer from 20 minutes ago, particularly in a return, even if we're having the robots suggest what we ought to say, put yourself in the customer's shoes and do right by them.
I appreciate that. Before we kind of go into the actionable insights for the folks online, I just want to get your quick thoughts on that last question, Adam.
I think Corey summed it up pretty well. I mean, just the idea of like, what does an agent do to drive customer retention, whether that's through upsell, cross-sell, during a return, whether that's through, automation and, macros or advanced macros in the mix there. I think going back to that example that I pulled up earlier of what are the things in your agent playbook that would bend the curve, the historical, philosophical, point of view, some competitors in the space that started with, rules engines and automated things. Their hypothesis was you can't keep up with the influx of, returns, refunds, WSMO requests or whatever it may be. Therefore, you have to automate your way out of it. There's probably some old advertising out there from some really gorgeous looking stuff. And, when you look at those scenarios, the reality of that was that the reason why you had to automate your way out of it is because it was incredibly inefficient for an agent to be able to help. Now you're somewhere in between, which is like, okay, if we can make the agent's experience operationally as or more efficient than automation, and automation has actually become really smart where I don't have to manage this, massive set of rules, but I can do it through natural language and procedure creation. And I have, Copilot in there that's using AI. Now you've got this magic sweet spot somewhere in between, which is I want to use agents to do things like upsell, cross-sell, like helping you place a new order. And I want to put into their hands, oh, fantastic. I have access to your entire order history here, not just to be able to look at, but to be able to look at and say, great, I see that you're a fan of X, Y, and Z type of items, or I see that you've collected most of a set, but you're missing this item. And then put that all together to literally go and say, hey, let me go ahead and issue you enough points to be able to purchase that item, or put somebody just into the next tier. It looks like you're ever so shy of qualifying for our gold tier, but you reached out with an issue. The easiest appeasement that an agent can make without getting back anything is extending a membership period, moving to a new tier, things like that, but having that stuff directly at your fingertips and allowing them to be actionable. I think that's where you couldn't write enough rules to be able to automate that stuff, but you certainly could use that to automate a bunch of things that then when your agent was having that experience, you could do things that historically would have been unbelievably difficult and time consuming.
I appreciate that. And I think it kind of sounds like we're all kind of saying similar things here, which is, AI is going to do a lot to help the CX teams, but at the end of the day, your CX team is your superpower. So I think we'll just move into kind of just the last few pieces here and what we can take away for actions for the people here on the webinar today. So I'm going to start with you for the first part here, James. If I'm a CX leader preparing for Q4, where should I start today to get this all set up in time?
Yeah, I think my advice is to begin with visibility. I think you need to have easy access to all of your loyalty data, your order history. Nothing else really matters. Like, you're putting the cart before the horse if you don't have that. Everyone needs to know who they're talking to, what they can offer without escalating any approvals. I think secondly, like, there's a few like quick wins and loyalty moments you can create there, whether that's like bonus points for exchanges, like automatic rewards for like shipment delays, or just like simple, refer a friend prompts, like, after each email that you send. These are like super small, high impact changes that you can make through these like high volume periods. Even a prompt to refer friends, like on every single email you send, that's like, 900 different touch points after positive support experiences. And I think once that foundation is in place, the next step is to just ensure everything feels like one unified experience. That's my take.
Appreciate that. What about you, Adam?
I don't think anything more to add in here. I'm actually looking. It looks like there's some good questions in the chat throughout. I think that's a great example. From your end, James. I'd hate to miss some of these questions.
Sure. Okay, well then why don't we, before we wrap up, then why don't we jump straight into the questions? So keep your questions coming in. I'm going to start with the few that we've received already so far. But yeah, continue to drop some questions into the Q&A section there at the bottom of the webinar, and yeah, we'll kick off from here. So this is a question from Kevin. If you had to prioritize one change before the holiday season, what's the lowest effort, highest impact improvement we could make with our return or refund experience? Why don't we start with you, Adam?
I actually would love for this one to be something about agnoStack, but if I were running a retail brand, the number one thing that I would do is figure out how to get barcodes inside of my boxes to register gift receivers. I think the example that James showed from Rivo is one of the most game-changing things that I've seen. So do something to take your giftees and get them into your CRM system, your marketing automation system, your loyalty membership platform. That'd be the number one thing that I would do overnight. And it feels like super low barrier of entry, like print out stickers with barcodes, get your 3PL slapping them inside of boxes before they go out the door.
I love that. Maybe we should start our own loyalty platform, Adam. What about you, Corey? If there's one thing you could prioritize or change for the holiday season, low effort, high impact.
Yeah, it's going to sound like a setup, and it's not. Since Adam won't talk about himself, I think I will. And it comes back to what James was saying in the last question. It's having that visibility, and I have a lot of people in Zendesk who don't have agnoStack and are like, I don't know, I can't see anything. I got to click into these other systems. And I'm like, well, you could just do it. And they're like, what? So it's just, regardless of the avenue in which you do it, you got to be able to see something about that person. And the more you see, the better off you're going to be. Because if I have to ask those questions, I can watch that sentiment go down. I'm already mad at you about something. So why are you making me more mad? If I know all that right out of the gate and I can preempt it, it's the example that Adam gave earlier of, hey, without them asking anything, I have a missed call and that's it. I can go do some things that immediately get them on my side and have them recognize some of what I was saying. I guess I'm tripling down from earlier, like treat people the way that you would want to be treated yourself. So it's see what it is that that person is doing and then be able to react accordingly.
Absolutely. Okay, next question here is from Natalie. Are there good ways to surface loyalty data for agents inside of Zendesk so that they can use it during conversations? Who wants to take this one? Adam, do you want to start?
Sure. I mean, the straightforward answer is go sign up for agnoStack. It magically shows up in your customer timeline. We have integrations with a bunch of different loyalty platforms, Rivo being one of them, in there. So even if you are using one of the other players in the market, that stuff is pre-built and integrated into Zendesk via agnoStack. The Rivo integration, outside of the fact that we love James and team, it happens to actually be the best integration that we've got. So it's it has all the information on what we call our customer insights tab. So that includes everything around membership status, point balance, referral information, referral codes, the ability to issue points, the ability to change tiers, all of that stuff right from within there. In addition, there's our built-in customer timeline. So this is super powerful stuff. This shows you, maybe I'll even pull up my screen here one more time, but in addition to the kind of core loyalty data itself that I was mentioning earlier, so this is our customer insights module in addition to the order itself. It allows you to see what data do I know on a customer inside of Shopify, what data do I know inside of Zendesk, maybe if I'm using a marketing automation platform, loyalty platform, I see all that data. But in addition to the timeline interaction here. So this is really cool. This actually shows you, everything from, your integration with Klaviyo. I sent them, an initial email, maybe it was a marketing email. Did they open it or otherwise? Any custom events? This is an initial purchase. The order shipped out, they automatically got enrolled in our membership program. As part of that, it automatically issued them 100 initial points on Revo. I sent them another email as part of the return. I went in and manually, this is I think the one I did earlier where I actually did an appeasement. So having all of that information directly at your fingertips, it's just there. This literally takes, under 5 minutes to get set up. And the difference that I think having that at your fingertips can make is probably the biggest change I'd make here if I was a retailer.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Natalie. James, anything you want to add here?
Yeah, just to add to that, I think just from the screen share, just making the loyalty data not just visible, but actionable. I think it's not enough to know that a customer is like a VIP, but they need to know what that is in the context of the conversation on that timeline, as you were sharing there, Adam. You can see everything, you have full visibility, but you can also take actions too. So I think that kind of instant recognition changes that tone of the conversation. It's really subtle, but it's one of those things that are like building blocks. When you multiply that by hundreds or thousands of conversations, you save time and you also create better experiences for all customers. So that's my take.
Perfect. And I just want to jump onto a question. Just going to pull down here a quick second, a question from Rachel, because you both kind of covered this throughout. And again, and Adam, you covered it when you were showing us the timeline there. Rachel says, you mentioned using loyalty points during different parts of the return cycle. How do you train agents on this? How do you train agents on when and how to do it effectively? I'm going to go back to you for this one, James.
Sure, yeah, I can take that. Thanks for the great question, Rachel. So I think because giving agents access to loyalty tools is one thing, but I think, yeah, you're right. Like teaching them when and how to use it is really going to drive the impact. So what we found that works really best is building those loyalty gestures right into the workflow. So Corey was showing some interesting tools with Zendesk. Agents might see like different prompts like within that experience, like, oh, offer 200 points if the customer is exchanging rather than refunding. Really, the sky's the limit here on what you can actually do. And I think when you're baking that guidance right into the ticket itself, we see a lot easier like experience for everybody. Whether that's just like a small set of pre-approved loyalty actions that they can confidently use, or it's like a toolkit or like an internal SOP of like, here's what we do in situations where customers are unhappy, or like, here's what we put in every single email. At the heart of it, I think it's just like teaching that empathy through data. And if the agent knows who they're talking to, then agnoStack servicing that right on the front end. So is Zendesk, so is Rivo. So I think it's just making people comfortable with using loyalty as a retention tool, and just baking it into like that culture of customer service, because that's really what it is. I think it's empathy that's at the core of it all. That's my take.
Absolutely. Corey, I'd love to hear your thoughts just very briefly, because we're about to run out of time here, on thoughts of best practices for your agents when it comes to baking in loyalty into their workflow.
Yeah, and even on like the training side of things, Corey, I always always joke every time I get on a sales call with Corey, he's always got like his magic toolbox, his like 5 tricks of the trade, that it's like every single time he's got the most genuine specific things that's like everybody should be doing this, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe nobody's ever said that before. What's in the magic toolbox around training, Corey?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is always Zendesk, right? Like I'm not building all this magic myself. I would love to take credit for it, but I mean, the answer on that one is, in this case, Zendesk has its own knowledge base. So while that could be external facing, you also, in this case, would just put some of those things internally, such that your agents can know, like James, you're saying, hey, I have access to A, B, and C without worry. D, E, and F, I better get manager approval. G, let's maybe not ever use G, but at least know it exists if we have to. And then, like I was showing earlier on the AI side of things, it's that procedure. It's saying, hey, if this is the scenario, then agent, come back with this thing that you can respond with. And like I was mentioning, I mean, 2 days ago or yesterday, they launched instructions. And so being able to just have your system tell your agent, this is the thing you ought to do. I'm not going to tell you how to say it, but this is the answer to that question. Again, whether it comes from that knowledge base, or is something that we've written specifically for that scenario, that's how I would go about that one.
I appreciate that. Okay, we're about to run out of time. I want to make sure that we can give everybody some time back before, so they can get water, whatever they need to do before the next meetings. We want to make sure to thank everybody as well for coming on today. We'll make sure that you receive follow-ups regarding this, and access to the recording afterwards as well. But very last question before we finish up, and this one comes from Andrew. Adam, I'm going to shoot this one straight over to you. Andrew says, we've been using Gorgias today. What would you say is the biggest difference in how Zendesk and agnoStack handle return flows?
Nice. Let's end on a softball here.
Yeah.
Just real quick before I do touch on that, I see a couple of other questions. Sip, I saw that you've got one in the chat here. Denise, Priya, if we don't get to them on here, we're happy to include the follow up around some of that stuff. So thanks for sharing those. I think on the question of, I've been using Gorgias today. How is the combined agnoStack Zendesk solution, better, different? How do we handle return flows? I don't think that we've got enough time on here to talk about the differences. I think, we think tremendously of our, friends over at Gorgias. They've got a really amazing product in the industry that's, done incredible things for helping improve the overall post-purchase experience in the e-commerce ecosystem. I think beyond there, if I were to pick one thing, we see a good number of customers who have some overall scaling challenges there. So, multi-site, multi-store, multi-brand, multi-platform, or, incredible volumes of tickets where the solution started out seeming like it would be a really great fit. And perhaps over time that the combined, Zendesk agnoStack offering adds a bit more to the puzzle. But nothing but great things to say about, them as a company and a product.
Sorry, Andrew, you're not going to get Gorgias bashing from us here today. Okay. I want to thank my panelists here, Corey, Adam, James. Thank you so much for your time. This was particularly enlightening. And to everybody on the with the webinar today, thank you so much for giving us so much of your time. You'll receive follow-ups with additional information and the recording from us later on. If you ever have any questions regarding anything we talked about today, or you're looking to get more information, feel free to reach out to any of us. We're all on LinkedIn. I think you'll also get our email addresses as part of this follow-up. Feel free to shoot us, any of us, a note, and we'll be sure to get back to you as quickly as possible. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much, and have a great afternoon, everybody.